Hello, I am live, I think. Let's see here. Got the chat open. Okay, I gotta mute myself over here because I hear an echo. Let's see. I'm seeing my microphone pick up, so that's a good thing. I got audio. Who's here? Who's here? It says 9 people are watching. Come say hi. Let me know that this is all working well, guys. If you don't know me, I'm Benson. I'm gonna be taking you guys through some editing today. Let's see, is that a better angle? Let's see here. Oh, okay. This chat is different. Got it. Okay. Okay, I see. So I see your chat here. I see Taylor. I see Kenny. I see Mushu-chan. I see Jess S. I see Josh Razalan. Awesome. Okay, let's jump right into this. This is going to be a quick run through of my process for working through a lunch break edit, a standard lunch break edit. So let's just jump in. Let's share my screen here. So I have a little setup. It might be a little bit laggy for you guys, but there we go. Okay, so I have myself here, and then I'm sharing this screen for you. Look at this nice wallpaper here for you guys to take a look at. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my hard drive. Okay, so this is one of our hard drives that we like to use. It's named Coco after the movie Coco. But as you can see, we have a bunch of projects on here. But I'm going to start with, if you can see, there's some like previous lunch breaks. Some of them are in the works. Let's see, I'm going to go to this guy right here. We shot this one last week. This was about relationship advice. I believe we did a call out on our social media asking you guys to give us questions that we would answer on lunch break. So first thing with editing is knowing where all your files are, right? So one of the most important things is keeping yourself organized on the Finder level and within your hard drives. So as you can see, everything's all very clearly labeled and numbered. This folder here, it's titled LB, which is for lunch break, _ EP episode 168, and then _ relationship advice. So within this folder, I have the dailies folder. So within the dailies folder is everything you shot from the previous day, right? That term is carried over from the film days where they would shoot a reel of film and then process that, and that would be whatever they shot the day before. But we're just borrowing that terminology. So within this folder is dailies. And here is our folder 110 Pana. That's from our Panasonic GH4. And as you can see a little bit of our footage here. So we shoot with the GH4 because that has it doesn't have the restraints of cutting up clips. So if we were to shoot with like the Sony cameras, they would likely shut off around like 30 minutes. But with lunch break, we tend to shoot we can shoot up to 45 minutes. So 30 minutes is a little bit too short for our conversations. So, and also our memory cards, we use just these standard 32 gigabyte memory cards. And this will get us about 45 minutes in a GH4. But we try to aim under 40 minutes just so we don't have too much footage to go through. Then we just have your standard 8 gigabyte that we record audio to, and record audio to our Zoom H6. And then I will show you that. Well, first here are the camera files, and the reason it's all technically when you press record, it just kind of runs all the way through, but then the camera itself creates these separate clips automatically. And that's just It's pretty complicated, but as you can see, it's around like 4 gigabytes because there's different like limits to. You guys can look it up. I won't go into that. So there's the camera, and then here's the zoom, and then as you can see, there's 5 tracks of audio. So one's going into the left channel, and then we have 4 tracks here, and that is. So what we have is we have 4 lavaliers that we all each wear. So there's 4 of us, and then the last one here, I believe, is our boom mic that we have like overhead, and that's kind of like our first backup, and then our last backup is a Rode video mic that we put on the camera itself. So there's the dailies folder. One really important thing is once the dailies folder is made, we don't touch the dailies folder, because if you change any file names here on the Finder level, or if you move things around here, that's where you're gonna run into issues of things going out of sync, or maybe a file getting corrupted, or maybe replaced by something if you label it wrong. So making sure that your dailies folder is not touched once it's created. So the first folder I'm gonna make within here is called Premiere Files. Okay. Before I get to there, I keep everything within this project folder. I'm gonna copy that title, and you'll see why in a second. But I keep everything in here just in case if I need to transfer this project to a different folder, or to a different hard drive, or to a different editor, I can just take this whole folder and it will take everything. It'll take the dailies, it'll take the Premiere projects, and it'll be nice and quick. So I don't have to be going through different hard drives, different folders to find all the things that I need. Right. And feel free to stop me and ask questions if you guys have any questions. But yeah, so next thing I'll do is I'll open up Premiere. It's going to open up on my other screen, and then I'm going to drag it over for you. Okay, so here's Premiere. Oops, where'd it go? All right, I'm going to create a new project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this matches up. So as you can see, that's our old episode from last week, Crazy Rich Asians. So I want to make sure that I'm picking the right folder. So relationship advice, Premiere Files, and I'll choose that. And then I'm going to paste my project title so it matches. Yeah, you see that? It matches. Okay. And then scratch disk, guys, I do same as project. In the real world, if you're working on like big multi-million-dollar projects, you're probably going to want your scratch disks on different hard drives just for backup sake. But you know, we're not really traveling with these drives. They're not doing anything crazy. So and we have backups on other drives as well. So it's not as big a deal for us to keep our autosave files on the same hard drive. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, and it has created a Premiere project. Here we go. Let me shrink that so you guys can see me in the corner over here. Cool. So then if I check this, there's my project file. Cool. Another file or another folder I'm going to create early on is going to be the assets folder. And this is where I put any like GIFs or images or pop-ups that I want to add to the lunch break. So I'll just create that now just so it's nice and tidy. The next thing I'm going to create, this is a little bit for later, but it'll be for the thumbnail. So any like images or pop-ups I want to use for the thumbnail, I'll put it in here. So it's nice and organized. And then one last folder I'll make is the exports folder. And that's where any final exports will go, and we'll upload straight from there. So everything's very nice and organized. I'm not going to use some of these folders just yet, but you'll see why a little bit later on. So I'm going to try to edit this whole lunch break in 30 minutes. Just kidding. Cool. So here is Premiere. All right, Adobe Premiere. This is how I like. This is yeah, this is like a custom workspace that I created. It's very kind of streamlined. You guys are probably used to seeing this workspace if you use Premiere. So yeah, so like you have your project bin over here, you have your timeline over here, your program monitor and your source monitor over here. But I like to have my timeline be as big as possible. So I created this workspace, excuse me, so that the timeline is as big as I can have it. And then I combine my source monitor with my project monitor over here, just because like I'm only really using like one thing at a time, really. Like I don't have a need to see my bins and my source monitor at the same time. But anywho, this is my setup. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import my dailies. So going over here. Oh, I'm in the wrong hard drive. I'm going to import my dailies here. So this will take a second. How's my audio? Is it coming through? Is it laggy? Is my audio okay, guys? Is this all super boring to you? Oh, here we go. I accidentally unmuted myself on this screen. Oops. Okay, so my dailies are in. There's my camera files, and then there are my audio files. Cool. And then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bin called sequences. And this is where I'm going to put all my sequences. First sequence I make is called a string out, and that's where I just lay out all the video, all the audio, and get everything in sync. And if you notice, it's a 1080p sequence. We shoot in 4K, and you'll see why in a second, but we shoot in 4K, and then we downscale to 1080p, so that way we can do all those punch-ins that you guys see. So it almost acts as if we had like 5 different cameras. So first thing I do is string out. I'll bring in all my camera clips, just drag them right in. And I'm going to keep the sequence settings because I want it to stay 1080p. If this becomes a 4K sequence, then if I do any downscaling from there, I start to lose quality. And then the effect is just kind of pointless at that point. So as you can see, it's zoomed in because it's 4K. So the first thing I'll do is I'll actually take this down to 50%. I like to take it down in the effects control. You can also do it this way by right-clicking and where is it? Scale or set to frame size. And it does that as well. Yeah. But if you do scale to frame size though, as you can see, the numbers don't change here. So you make sure to do set to frame size. That way you can see the number. That way you know that there's more data in this file, right? And what I can do is I can copy that and I can select all of them and paste my attributes. And then now it should be on our wide for the whole thing. Okay. So the next thing I do also is within our hard drives, all our hard drives are set up with what we call the master assets. This is the Moore Wong Fu master assets. And this is just a folder that we have all of our kind of like shared files together. So I'll bring that in as well. I'll just bring the whole thing. So these are like Photoshop files that need to be merged. But the reason we have a master assets file folder is so we're not like duplicating all of the songs and all of the graphics and all of the different intros and stuff for each project. We just have it in one source, and that way, you know, we're conserving the file space. So in this master assets folder, we got different graphics here. some like different arrows and things that pop up. We have like different pictures of ourselves. There's a picture of Taylor's head, if I ever needed Taylor's head. Let's see. Looks like these are, yeah, just random graphics that we've used throughout lunch break and More Wong Fu in general. Here's our More Wong Fu intro. I wonder if you guys get that audio. You guys get that audio, or do you just hear me? Let's see. Let me know if you guys are hearing them more. Because that would be helpful for you guys to see the audio. Anyway, there's the more, and then I think this is our end screen. Yeah, this is our little end screen that Jen created. And then we have a huge folder of music. All these songs that were collected from Kevin MacLeod or Incompetech or YouTube's Creator Studio. A lot of music here. I wonder if I should maybe do this without headphones. That way you guys can hear the audio. Okay. Yeah, you guys can just hear me. Got it. Okay. Let's try this. More. Okay, can you guys hear that? More. You guys hearing that? Are you hearing me and that? More. Okay, cool. So now we can edit together and I don't need to wear these. Okay. Alrighty, so here's my string out. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to sync the audio. So as you guys remember, there's 5 tracks here. First one is usually going to be this person here, which is Wes in this case. He's wearing the A love, so we do A, B, C, D. Next one's gonna be Taylor's love. Then followed by me. Am I wearing this shirt? No, I'm not wearing this shirt today. The last one is Jen. And then the last track of audio is going to be our boom. Okay. So as you can see, that's all these 5 are already synced up just automatically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to sync up by eye. We normally clap at the beginning. So sometimes I'll go walk through and you can see the spikes here. The waveforms. Let me try to see if I can find that clap. I don't know if we clapped here. Anyway, if you guys see this. Lunch break. Okay, that's lunch break. And then down here, this is also lunch break. Lunch break. Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do is we'll just use that. See if that's in sync.
I'm back with another lunch break.
Hello.
I am so hungry. Summer is over. It feels like it. It's cooling down.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's just like super laggy.
LA, which is nice.
I'm in denial.
It also means a lot of summer loving.
Okay, we are synced, guys. We are in sync. Okay. Now what I do is I'm going to take off what are called handles. So like all this bit over here is useless to the left here. It's just, there's no video here because we rolled the audio first. So I'll just get rid of that handle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this last handle. Okay. And then the next thing that I do is, now that I have it set up as a wide, I'm going to start duplicating this into specific angles. So I'm going to duplicate this 4 times. So I have 5 different video tracks, okay? In the same way that I have 5 different audio tracks. So I also, this is the audio that came with the camera. So this is the Rode Video Mic Pro. It's not the best audio. It's decent. It's better than the in-body audio, but that's like the backup just in case anything were to happen, if there was like static, or if one of the mics were to fail, then we would go there. But for now, I'm going to disable that. I disable that by pressing Command Shift E. So then that turns it off. And then I also turn off the boom, because that's like our backup audio. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'll do that. Okay. So then, oh, there is a clap there.
It's 4K.
So this is the pre-lunch break.
1, 2, 3. Lunch break.
Is that cool? You guys, what do you guys think? All right, awesome. Okay. So what I also do is, so the camera makes these cuts automatically, right? So I also like to put cuts all the way down my audio tracks as well. And I'm just making sure that all these are enabled so I can manipulate all these. So I'll put a cut down there, and then I'll put a cut down there. So that way, when I select all these down, I get, just that. Whereas if I were to select this like that, it would like have this, and then if I moved it, it would be out of sync, right? Does that make sense? So then everything stays in sync for the most part. So from here, I'm on the wide. I keep the wide on top just because that's probably the most used angle. So let me just turn this off for a second. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to manipulate this clip here. I'll bring that up to like 75%, or maybe let's go 80. Okay, so as you can see, it zoomed in a little bit. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to use this as like Wes's camera angle, which is the furthest left. So as if this was like his isolated camera, right? And utilizing the rule of thirds, I try to keep his eye around the top third line, and then I try to keep his face around this area. So then if I were to punch into Wes, say I'm on the wide, Wes is talking, punches in there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to paste that on the rest of these clips. So then if I go down here, I double check my work to make sure it made it all the way to the end, right? And it did. Okay. Now I'm going to work on this one. So I'm going to go do another 80% push in, and then it's going to be Taylor's coverage, right? So I'm going to, same thing. I try to keep his eyes around the top third, and then I'm going to almost center him. So he's center there, but because he's facing in a particular direction, I'm going to kind of put him a little bit off center to the opposite side he's facing. Okay. So let's see. It's a little bit high. I'll lower him a little bit. So then when I go from the wide and then say Taylor's talking, punches in to him there. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So same thing, I'm going to copy that, paste it on the rest of the tracks, and I'm going to check my work, make sure it's stuck all the way to the end. And it did. Success. Okay. Now, working on to this handsome guy's angle. Again, 80. So same thing with Taylor. I don't want to put myself completely center. I'll put myself a little bit off because I'm facing that direction. So that will be my solo angle. Okay, and it's making sure that sticks. Cool. And then last but not least, we have Jen's angle. Okay, and what I do with Jen's angle is I just disable the entire thing because she doesn't need to be in this lunch break. Just kidding. I just try to see if she was paying attention. Okay. So once again, about 80%, and then I'll bring her right about there. Right about there. So then when she goes and she starts talking, it'll punch into her there. Yeah. So that way your eye's not really doing too much movement. You understand that you're focusing on this person when they're talking, but your eye doesn't have to like jump across the frame. Right? Does that make sense? Less strain on the eyeballs. Once again, I copy that and I'm going to bring that to the rest of my timeline. Okay. So now I can turn all those back on. So you'll see why I did that in a little bit. Okay. So at this point, the string out is officially complete. I don't need to touch this dailies folder anymore, and I don't need to touch this string out sequence anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to duplicate that. And this is going to be, let's call this relationship advice cut 01. So if you notice, the string out's still down here. So I got to make sure to open this sequence. And this sequence is going to be the one I'm actually going to be manipulating and doing cuts to. The string out is just for reference. This is just for syncing, and this is just for kind of scrubbing through, right? I don't want to touch this because if I need to go backwards and like maybe recover something that I might have cut out, like say we're watching a cut and we're like, oh, where's that part? That was actually really funny. Can you bring that back in? I can go back to the string out and be like, oh, it's here. I can find it, instead of like trying to go through all these folders and trying to resync. So I make the string out so I can always have something to work backwards from. So I got a little question here. Let's see. So yeah, I'll go to this first one. So sometimes we count off.
Lunch break. We are back.
And there's always a pause.
Break.
There's always a pause after break because we don't like set ahead of time like who's gonna be the one to start talking. But so there's always this pause that we cut out.
Lunch break. We are back with another lunch.
Okay. Kenny asks, have you always been editing with this workflow? Has it like evolved into this naturally, or do you have deliberately carved out time to think about your lunch break workflow? So some of this is actually borrowed from Taylor. Taylor edited the first few lunch breaks, and he kind of had a similar workflow. And then I brought some of my workflow in from like previous editing sessions that I've done for clients and whatnot. And this is like kind of like all the different experiences that I've built and been trained over the years of like how to efficiently work with other people. So like coming in, me and Chris were the lunch break editors. So we need to have a similar enough workflow so we can pass projects together pretty easily. If we were going to be out of town or if we need to hop on a different edit, we wanted to make sure that the lunch breaks would always come out on time, right? So like if Taylor needed to hop on an edit or Wes, they can all follow this system and then it should be pretty seamless. So it's important, especially if you're working in a team, to understand how everybody works, but also have kind of a standard set of rules so that things don't get lost and you don't have to spend time like trying to figure out things, right? So the more you can set up ahead of time, the better. That way you can have more time spent on editing, right? Instead of searching for things or resyncing things, right? So good question, Kenny. All right, so now that I've created my cutting sequence, I can close this out. So that way I don't mess with it and that doesn't get messed up. Next thing I'm going to do is the labeling phase. So this was a pretty short lunch break. As you can see, we shot about 28 minutes worth. Normally we shoot about 35 to 40 minutes. So this one was pretty short. So I'll call this label phase. And you'll see in a second. So, sorry. Getting some water. So in this first pass, what I do is I cut out all the air. I cut out all the things that are for sure going to be left out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to work this time to get as short as possible, right? And I'm not trying to get it down to 10 minutes on this first pass. I'll probably get it down to maybe 20 minutes on this first pass. But the goal is to get everything labeled by ideas. And I'm like pointing to the screen, as you can see. But if you look at my mouse, I'm trying to section this off into chapters, essentially. So the first thing I know is that this color here is iris. And so what that tells me is that, okay, all this here, that's the same color, has been unlabeled, right? It hasn't been noted or anything like that. And then down here, this color is Caribbean. So that's not labeled. So you'll see why in a second. So first thing I'm going to do is start working my way through the sequence.
Did I change it to 4K?
So I'll just go straight to this lunch break. I know what lunch break looks like as a waveform. So if you guys were curious, that's what lunch break looks like as a waveform.
Lunch break!
I'm going to do Command K, which puts a cut where my playhead is, and then I'll get rid of that. And I'll bring that down.
Lunch break!
And then usually this is where our intro kind of zooms in and pops in. But I don't need to worry about all those intros and all that just yet, because I already know those are going to go in. My main focus is just getting through the days.
We are back with another lunch break.
So this bit here, a lot of air that can be cut out.
We are back with another lunch break.
Hello.
Hi, I'm so hungry. Summer is over. Summer is over. Is it? It feels like it. It's cool.
So what I'm doing is I'm also putting some temporary cuts in here. Well, actually not temporary, but like pilot cuts. Because these are moments that either can be cut out or maybe it's going to be an angle change. So as I work through, you'll see.
Lunch break! We are back with another lunch break.
Hello.
Hi, I'm so hungry. Summer is over. Is it? It feels like it. It's cooling down in LA, which is nice.
I'm in denial.
Nice.
I'm in denial.
Also means a lot of the Summer 11 is cooling down as well. Summer 11.
Hopefully not.
So let's see here.
Already?
Places you can see, like we put a lot of cuts on these quiet moments here. So usually what that signifies is it's the end of a sentence, or maybe one of us could be like stuttering or trying to find a thought.
I'm in denial.
It also means a lot of the Summer 11 is cooling down as well. Summer 11.
Hopefully not. I mean, unless you wanted to.
Hibernation is starting.
Already?
The early stages.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of the beginning of lunch breaks is like trying to figure out how to get into the conversation. So we cut a lot of this stuff out.
So because of that, we thought we would change it up this episode and ask you guys if you had
That's a perfect example of trying to figure out like how to get into the conversation naturally.
This episode and ask you guys if you had
So that's a clear mistake, right? That I'll take out.
A call out for questions to see if you. We did something fun on social media. We did a call out for questions to see if you guys need advice on your love life.
So let's see. Leah asks, is there a reason you disable those audio tracks instead of just muting them? So I like, so you can, I keep them here for a purpose that if I do need it in like an emergency situation where say the mic, so say like all these tracks like go off, or maybe they're static, or maybe the mic fails and I need to get back to this as a backup, I can just kind of re-enable that as backup audio. Same thing with this. So like this is the camera audio and then this is the boom. So we have two backups of audio. The primary audio is going to be all these 4 lavs that we have that we're all wearing. And so you have your mute here, which mutes the entire track. But if you notice, say, if I have it enabled and I have it muted, yeah, it turns it off, but visually I see that it's still on. So I like to visually see that it's turned off instead of just muted over here. And then also, say like it's only messed up right here, I can just like enable that section and instead of manipulating the whole track. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
See if you guys need advice on your love life. And we're the panel to answer it.
I have years of accumulated experience to share with you all.
Yeah, don't ask about qualifications.
Yeah.
Just take it for what it's worth.
Yeah. So we got a lot of submissions, right, Jen?
Yes, a lot. Well,
So we got a lot. We got a lot of submissions, right, Jen?
yes, a lot.
So there's a lot of this air. I'll use this term a lot. There's a lot of this air that we cut out, and that's just to help make the lunch breaks more snappier and not like boring, right? So we try to keep you guys on your toes when we go through. So let's see what I did this first bit so far.
Lunch break. We are back with another lunch break.
Hello.
I'm so hungry.
Summer is over.
Hello.
Summer is over.
Is
Is it? It feels like it.
Oops.
Over. It feels like it. It's cooling down in LA, which is nice.
I'm in denial.
Cooling down, which is nice.
I'm in denial.
It also means a lot of Summer 11 is cooling down as well.
Summer 11.
Hopefully.
Okay, so let's look at that first bit here. So we're gonna do lunch
break. We are back.
So I'll show you now that we can do some like punch-ins here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna disable these, right? And I don't delete, like for the same reason I don't disable the audio. I like to leave them here just in case I want to turn them on. So you'll see this.
Lunch break. We are back with another lunch break.
Hello.
So Jen says hello there.
Hey.
And perfect example of why I would want to come back out to the wide for that.
Hello.
Summer
And go back into Taylor
is
here.
over.
Is
It feels like it. It's cooling down, which is nice.
I'm in denial.
Oops. So let's see what this looks like.
Hello.
Summer is over.
Is
it? It feels like it. It's cooling down, which is nice.
I'm in denial.
See, that's a little funky. I don't know how smooth this is playing for you guys, but I'm actually gonna change this up a little bit. So as you can see, like I'm kind of experimenting by turning them on and off instead of deleting them. So I have that option. So then this is if I were to stay on the wide and then punch into Jen here.
We are back with another lunch break.
Hello.
Summer is over.
Is
it?
So that
It
felt
feels
a little
like
more
it.
natural.
It's cooling down, which is nice.
I'm in denial.
Also means a lot of summer loving is cooling down as well.
Summer loving.
Hopefully not. I mean, unless
Let's see. So yeah, Josh, you're asking what command I'm using to rejoin the rest of the timeline. So say I'm putting a cut here and I'm taking that out. I'm just selecting the empty area and pressing delete, and that brings everything back down. And the command I'm using to cut is Command K. Then you're saying here, I would have used the multicam feature to go between angles. So this is a good point. The multicam. So the reason why I don't use multicam, there's a specific reason why I don't use multicam, and I've tried it before with this. But if you multicam, first thing you have to do is nest these, right? So, and then what happens is you have a whole nested sequence, and it's all just green. And if you select different tracks like 1 through 5, it's all going to be green. So, but I keep it this way because I can visually see that this is how often I'm punching in and at what particular angles. If it was a multicam sequence, it would all be the same color. And I wouldn't know, like, if I have maybe like two like wrong cuts next to each other. So that's the reason why I keep it this way. And I've noticed it doesn't really slow me down as much, but it visually helps me to remember at what points am I punching in, at what points am I on the wide. So I can clearly see I'm on the wide for this much. I'm on a punch in here. I'm on the wide again. So generally you'll kind of see this pattern here, coming out to the wide, going into a close, coming out to a wide throughout the timeline. But if I had just one sequence, I wouldn't be able to tell that just by looking at it.
Summer loving.
hopefully not. I mean, unless you wanted to.
Hibernation is starting.
So Jen starts talking here. Oh, oops.
Summer loving is cooling down as well.
Summer loving.
Hopefully not. I mean, unless you wanted to.
Hibernation is starting.
Already?
The early
Oh, no.
stages.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Man, it's already 45 minutes in, guys. What do you guys think about this? Is this entertaining for you? Is this interesting? How many of you guys are editors? Let me know. There's definitely a few editors in here that are watching.
Yeah.
So yeah, for example, like, so yeah, Kenny and Josh, if this was a multicam sequence, like, oops, like that's potentially what would be looking at. So it's hard to tell from just looking at this sequence, like what camera angles I would be on, right? So even though like the cuts are there,
We are back with another lunch break.
Hello.
I can't tell just by looking at this on the timeline that it's a punch in. Cool, and that's, I guess, that's a pretty basic look at how I set up these lunch breaks. Let's see. Oh, I was going to talk about labeling too, so let's just kind of watch this through.
Lunch break. We are back with another lunch break.
Hello.
Summer is over.
Is it?
Is it? It feels like it. It's cooling down,
Mhm.
which is nice.
I'm in denial.
It also means a lot of summer loving is cooling down as well.
Summer loving.
Hopefully not. I mean, unless you wanted to.
Hibernation is starting.
Already?
The early
Oh, no.
stages.
Oh yeah. So because of that.
No.
Stages.
Oh yeah.
So this whole like kind of laughter bit is a little long, so we can take that out.
The early
no.
stages.
Oh yeah. So because of that, we thought we would change it up this episode and So we did something fun on social media. We did a call.
No.
Oh yeah.
So this is part of that mistake that we had earlier that I was taken out. So then I can just get rid of that.
Oh yeah. So we did something fun on.
So then eliminate that jump cut.
Yeah. So.
I'm gonna punch into Taylor's coverage here.
Oh yeah. So we did something fun on social media. We did a call out for questions to see if you guys need advice on your love life, and we're the panel to answer it.
Yep.
Okay, so then going through the labeling, this first section here until about there, let's call this like the pre-intro, right? So I'm gonna give that this color violet, and just a reminder from the beginning that all this down here is iris. So I don't label anything iris because that tells me that it's been unlabeled. So then if I were to label, say, this section, I would skip ahead and go, I'll probably go to Caribbean, or sometimes I don't like using Caribbean because it's the same color as that, but I will go to lavender, which is like a pink, right? And I'm only labeling the camera audio because I want to keep this all the same color, because when I go through and when I start leveling the audio, once again, Caribbean's telling me that it's unmodified. So then what I'll do is, like, say I'll start leveling that. And like, say if that was what I wanted, then I'll go and I'll change this to like a forest green. So that tells me that I've done this work and I've labeled that. So then the goal is, in this first cut, to get through the whole sequence, and it'll be nice and colored, and it'll be colored by different chapters that we're talking about. And then from there, I'll start leveling all this audio throughout. So sometimes we'll be talking low, we'll need to bring it up, and then I will know that it's been leveled by labeling it green or forest, right? So let's see here. Cool. I think I actually got to wrap this up. Let me know if you guys have any questions about editing. It's been a process. We've got lunch break down to maybe like a 3-day turnaround. So then we'll shoot a lunch break. It'll take about a day to get this labeling phase done, and in that day, we'll probably get it cut down to about somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes. Let me get this going. Let's go. No. Oops. All right. So yeah, we get on the first day, we get the lunch break cut down to about 15, 20 minutes. And that'll take about a day to go through all the dailies. And then the next day, we'll get it down to under 15 minutes. And around this time, we're going to be starting to level all the audio. All of our camera angles have been chosen. At this point, we'll start putting in graphics and music. And then on the third day, it's just finalizing everything, finalizing the audio, getting it trimmed down to around 10 to 12 minutes, creating the thumbnail, and then like prepping it for upload. That'll be the third day. So each lunch break we do takes about 3 days. So keep in mind, like all the other projects that we have, this is probably like the fastest that we can do lunch break at this point. So like between me, Chris, and Taylor, Taylor's usually editing our main channel content, and then me and Chris are on the second channel content like lunch break or BTS. So every now and then we'll have interns come in, and they will help us with either the assemblies on these and help us get it trimmed down, so that way we can kind of spread the load a little bit. And speaking of interns, we just posted on Twitter that we're going to be accepting applicants for this coming fall's editing internship. So be on the lookout for that. And let's see. So yeah, each editing day is probably like a 8 to 10 hour a day worth of editing. And obviously you can't just edit straight that whole time. So you're probably getting about 6 hours maybe of editing in. So maybe in a later in a later live stream, I can show you the progress of this once it's like through the next couple phases, because this is just the first sequence, and then the next one will be a trim sequence, and then a graphics, and then an audio sequence. So Leia's asking, are you using network attached storage or internal hard drives for all the footage? We are using external hard drives for the most part. We're just using our G drives like this that we back up to. We have like different travel drives that we pass back and forth to each other. It would make sense to have a RAID system or something like a server that we can all access the same thing, but we're not that high tech just yet. So we're just using standard external hard drives. Okay. So yeah, these are just like, very basic things. Just establishing a workflow is the most important. Some people, when they edit, they just kind of jump right in, and then it's their folders don't make sense and their bins don't make sense. So this is just a way to make sure that if I were sick and I had to be out of the office, I could just easily give this project to somebody, and it's very clearly labeled and organized, so then they could pick it up and we can keep our edits on time, because deadlines are deadlines and you can't miss them. Every Thursday, lunch break. So yeah. Anywho, I think that's it for me for now. This has been almost an hour live stream. I'm sorry, guys, if I bored you guys. If you guys are still awake, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. Thank you for being care holders. And we will have more live streams next month. For now, I'm signing off. Go to our Twitter, check out the internship call out if you guys are interested. If you guys are freshly graduated or in school looking for an internship, hit us up. Applications due next Friday, the 7th. So get them in quick. All right, guys. Bye.